Hello, welcome everyone. We are the political pundits, DICKS. Welcome all to this video. We are going to be discussing the polling for the 2020 presidential race. We're going to be discussing the national, the state trends, and see where the state of the race is. So we're going to have our various disagreements in this video, but we'll discuss it and share our thoughts, and we will display what the polls are showing.
Yep, so starting off with the national polling, we can see that Biden is still holding a 10-point lead. He was up at plus 11 if you round, but has come down just a couple of tenths. Now, both of us, I know I can speak for partner here, where we both agree that Biden doesn't really have a 10-point lead. I personally think it's down at probably around plus 5, maybe plus 6, but it's no way it's 10. When election
No,
day comes, we
I
will
don't believe
definitely
that.
see.
Fake polls. Fake, just like Trump says. Fake polls.
Well, they're not fake, they're just
I know.
over-representative. But on a national level, I do think it'll become a plus 5 because I know California is going to vote way left, and I know voter turnout in Texas is way up, so there'll be more votes for Democrats overall. So we're just going to have to wait and see. So moving on, we are going to go to the state of Arizona.
Yeah, so in Arizona, it looks like Biden's ahead +4. I don't think it's going to be +4 election day. Just my opinion. If Biden's going to win, he's going to win it probably by a point or two. If Trump's going to win it, he's going to win it by like a point.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be
I
within
think that the
1 point.
state is pretty much up for grabs. I don't think it's likely for anyone. It's up for grabs,
So it's a true toss-up.
in my opinion.
Yeah. Would you say it would be so we're going to give it a tilt characterization. Do you think it would be
So
tilt
tell
Democrat
Biden,
or tilt Trump?
Biden, yeah.
Tilt Biden? Okay. So we're going to fill in tilt Biden here.
It's just
And
following the trends that that area has been following.
yeah, so with Arizona going tilt, Biden is now at 233 to Trump's 125 electoral votes. Now, the next state we're going to look at moving eastward is the state of Texas. Now, I know we disagree heavily on this state, but Trump is up by 1.2, and I believe that has come down from about a 2-point lead at one point back in early October. Um, I personally believe this will be tilt Trump. The polls are actually overestimating him because I
I
looked
don't
at the.
believe it. I don't believe it.
Let me explain. So
All right.
I've been watching the early votes come in, right? And 56% of Texans who have voted, like 56% of Texans have voted as like compared to 2016 so far in just early voting. Like turnout is extremely high right now. It's almost unprecedented. Where most people who have voted in 2016 have already voted, plus anyone who might be voting now or first time voters. So that could higher turnout always helps Democrats, almost always. Sorry. So I think this will come down to a lean margin. I don't think Biden will flip or tilt margin. I don't think Biden will flip it, but it will definitely be tilt Trump.
All right. So I disagree. I think it's going to be lean instead of tilt. I don't think it's going to move to Biden that fast. I know Texas is going through this whole demographic change and Trump's down in the polls. I get it. I just don't personally think it's going to be less than a point margin for Trump. Because if, let's say, for example, on our model, we have Arizona as a tilt, and Texas, following that same logic, would have to be lean, in my opinion. And plus, I think Republicans, especially in a bunch of those rural areas, are going to make up for a lot of that early voting because a hell of a lot of Republicans are going to vote on actual election day.
Yeah, I mean, unless another hurricane hits, then they won't be. That's actually
And
that's
well,
actually a talking point I
I
saw
don't think
come up.
we're going to be seeing a hurricane in November.
Hurricane season goes through November.
I think it ends November 1st. It does it? I think so.
Let me see. It ends November 30th.
All right.
So it
Well,
does go through November. So it's possible. It's not going to happen, but it's possible. So since we disagree, we're just going to go with what the poll is saying, and the poll is saying it's going to be likely. No, sorry, it's going to be lean. So we're going to put it as a lean characteristic for Trump, just to follow the polls.
all right. So the next one we have here is Nebraska's second district. So this one's actually pretty interesting. not nearly as much data on the district as maybe we'd like from actual reputable polls.
Yeah, we're just gonna get rid of Survey Monkey real quick, just because it's trash.
You don't really, I mean, the last A-rated poll, sir, was from September.
And that was before
About a month.
Biden's bump as well.
Yeah, I think Biden will probably win this district. I don't know if it's going to be quite +7. I think maybe it'll be more like +3.
So Aline?
Yeah, a lean
Yeah,
anywhere in that range,
I agree. I
really.
think it's gonna be anywhere between 3 and 5. I mean, this is +7 without the bump from October. So it could, and if we take away 5, that gives us 2 plus whatever the bump gave Biden, which I believe was 2. So that'd be, yeah, +3 or 4. So I do agree with that. So if we go here, and hopefully I don't misclick, and that would go likely Biden. So now we have 234 to Trump's 163 electoral votes. Moving on to the state of Minnesota. I mean, we're not really going to talk about this state much after today because it has gone so heavily into Biden's favor that I don't think it's competitive anymore, if I can find it. Oh, it's narrowed up. It came down from +9. Would you look at that? Oh, wait, hold on. That's one pollster. Who was it? Change Research, C-. Awesome. Was that added today? Yeah, that was added today.
There really isn't enough polls.
Yeah, the polling in all the Rust Belt is never good. It wasn't in 2016, and it still isn't now. So I would say this is an outlier poll, and it's not going to actually have that much effect or is really reflective of the race at large.
They have to do some more polling to see if this is the actual trend, if it's actually narrowing up.
Yeah, exactly. So we're just going to skirt right past Minnesota because I think it'll definitely be likely Biden, and I don't think there's really much dispute in that. So
Right, so the next one is Iowa. In the polling, it's kind of been wavering a little bit between Trump and Biden. It shows Biden up. I don't think Biden's going to win it, in my opinion. I think it's just becoming more and more of a reliably Trump state to the point I don't think Biden's going to win it. I think come actual election day, we're going to see Iowa go to Trump. That's just my opinion.
I agree, although I think it's going to be by a tilt margin. It'll be less than 1% because Insider Advantage is a partisan Republican pollster, so they underestimate Biden. So he's probably under his true value by 2 or 3, which if we average it out to what we really think the polls are showing, Trump wins this state by less than a percentage. Would you agree?
I think it'll be a little bit more than that for Trump. I think maybe around 1 to 2.
1 to 2. All
It's
right.
just my opinion. You can put what you want.
Uh, eh, 0 to 1, 1 to 2. It's really close. So I'll just give it the. So after those 2 states, Biden's now 244 to Trump's 169 electoral votes, and we are now moving on to the state of Wisconsin. So the state of Wisconsin has also been one to watch because it's one of the Rust Belt states that Trump picked up in 2016. He won it by less than a point, but right now he's down by +7, and I don't see him picking up the state either. This is beyond grasp of him. He cannot pour enough ad money in here to flip or change these people's minds. The polling has been pretty consistent since July or as early as June. So I don't think in the last 2 weeks it's all of a sudden going to change. So I think Biden has locked this state down with a lean to likely margin.
I do agree that Biden's ahead in this seat right now. I do remember last time though that the polls are absolute goddamn trash in this state. We
Well,
don't
let's see
really
who's
know if
polling. Even Trafalgar has him up by 2.
that. Yeah, I agree that Biden's ahead. I don't know if it's 7 points per se. I don't know.
I don't agree that it's 7 points, but it's at least 2 if Trafalgar of all pollsters has him up by 2.
Because I do remember last election cycle there was a huge swing in Wisconsin. It was showing Clinton up +6, +7, and then it swung like 8 points. But yeah, I do think that Biden's ahead of the state by probably a lean margin.
Yeah, I'm going to characterize it as lean. That is not the right color.
So the next state we have here is Michigan. Michigan in the polling is stayed pretty consistent. I do think that Biden has the advantage here. By probably a lean margin. I do know that in terms of the early voting, that Republicans haven't been doing too bad. Um, with like the mail-in reporting, I don't know, all that early voting,
The
mail-in
early
voting.
voting in person is having the Republicans and Democrats nearly tied, but the mail-in is disproportionately in the Democrats' favor, like at ratios of I think it's 4 or 5 to 1.
Okay, yeah, I do think that Democrats are ahead in the state. I think this probably goes high in the high lean for Biden. I don't think it's going to go likely per se. I like the high lean.
And as you said earlier, though, that most Republicans are going to end up voting on election day, so it doesn't really matter because like
It's going to be
he can have the
interesting.
biggest lead he wants, but the Republicans are going to start voting more and more as it gets closer to election day.
Yeah, it's
So
going to be interesting to watch.
yeah, with these next two states, Biden's now at 270, which means he is now the winner of the election. If we were to not even characterize the rest of the states, it wouldn't matter to Trump's 169 electoral votes. And now we are going to go to the state of Florida. So Florida's been really interesting with their polling, where Biden's been ahead at up to +6 at one point, up to +7, I believe, and now it's down to about 3.4. So it is definitely narrowing up a bit, and Biden's definitely not safe as he's under 50%. But I actually think he will win this state by a tilt margin, maybe even a lean margin. I've been watching the early voting come in. I've been watching the mail-in votes come in, and it's heavily in the Democrats' favor. Even in Miami-Dade County, it's disproportionately in Biden's favor. So I think the cities of Florida are really going to help him get this. And if we even look at the polls, we can see that he's been consistently up, even by not even by Trafalgar, but again, it's Trafalgar. So I think he will carry this by 1 or 2%.
Something I do remember hearing somewhere is there are still early voting uh, ballots that need to come out for more of the Florida Panhandle, which is heavily Republican, by the way. So I think we have to watch to see what happens when they start their mail-in voting count there, in that region. That's just something I've heard, and I think it's correct. But I think Democrats have the very slight advantage at the moment. If you're going to ask me personally, I think Trump will manage to win the state by a very narrow margin. But right now, it's probably tilt Democrat. So the next state is Georgia, and this state, in the polling, it showed Biden up. I don't think Biden's going to win the state. I just don't think so. I think Trump's going to pull it out. I think he's going to pull it by like maybe 2 points or something. I think it's underwhelming Trump in that state because this has been a historically reliable state for Republicans. Even John McCain, in a very terrible year for Republicans, was able to edge this state out against enthusiastic, charismatic Obama. I think it will go to Trump by a lane margin.
I disagree, only because it has been trending blue, and there's been a lot of A-rated pollsters, as you can see, polling this state. And if you average out the A-rated pollsters here, you have Biden +1. We're going to ignore Quinnipiac because they suck in the South when they poll, so this +7 is an outlier. But I think with increased voter turnout and it shifting blue, it will come out to a tilt Biden.
So we have a disagree on that one. I'm saying lean. I'm saying lean Trump. You're saying tilt Biden.
Yeah, so I'm going to leave that as a toss-up on the map. So
yeah, we'll leave that as a
So it's
toss-up.
going to be left as a complete toss-up. So that means with these next two states, Biden's at 299 to Trump's 169 electoral votes. And now we're going to move on to the state of Ohio. So Ohio was originally trending left of Iowa, but as you can see that Trump is now back on top in the state with some new polls to show him polling above 50. But we're going to see if that's actually it is not a reputable pollster. It's Rasmussen and Civics, which are both right-leaning partisan pollsters. Regardless, I believe Trump is still going to carry the state by a tilt margin because it is more liberal than Iowa, and Iowa's going to go to Trump by 1 or 2%. But I don't believe Ohio will reach that same value, but it will still go to Trump, and it'll break its bellwether status for election predicting.
And if you're going to ask me, I think it would probably go in Trump. I don't necessarily agree with the tilt. That's just kind of more of my gut instinct right there. I think it's going to go lean. I don't think as much as last time, obviously, but maybe like 2, 3 points.
Yeah, so we're gonna lead. Actually, yeah. Well, wrong color. We will characterize it as lean.
So the next state that we have here is the state of North Carolina. This state has been a reliably Republican state for quite some time. Mitt Romney won this state. Trump won this state. It shows that Biden is up right now, and I personally think I personally can't make a determination of this race personally because I think that I'm pretty sure when I was seeing the early voting stuff, Republicans were actually doing pretty fine in this state. And like when we see what we've seen before, it looks like Democrats they're more likely to vote early, more likely to vote by mail versus Republicans who are going to go on election day. And if before election day, Republicans aren't doing so bad in that state, which is what I remember, then I think that Republicans can pull it off, but I just can't call anything. I just personally can't. You can, but I can't.
I would say this could be it could be tilt Biden. You have four A-rated pollsters. I mean, it's the same pollster. You have four A plus rated polls in a row that show Biden breaking 50% or very close to it. And with the Senate race, where what's his name, Kyle Cunningham? Kyle Cunningham's up like by like 5 points. I think that Biden will carry the state just because of Cunningham, because Cunningham's actually pulling ahead of him. So I would say
Okay,
this would be tilt
you
North.
can categorize as like tilt Biden.
Yeah, I was gonna say tilt Biden sounds about right. Moving on, we have the state of Pennsylvania, which is the most right-leaning state of the Rust Belt, so it's gonna be the closest. Am I blind? There it is. So it is only 6 points compared to the 7, 8, or 9 of the other states. And if we look at recent polling, it even shows narrower than that. But again, you have Harris, Trafalgar, and Rasmussen, which are not reputable pollsters. So if we scroll down, we even see Insider Civics. So terrible polls coming out of Pennsylvania, just like in 2016. It's very hard to even find an A plus rated pollster that's last polled this. You have Monmouth all the way back in October, which didn't even carry much of Trump's bump. So we really don't know where Pennsylvania's really polling right now with all these bad pollsters. We need
You're
another.
gonna ask.
We're gonna need some A or B rated pollsters to come back into this state so we actually know where it is truthfully. Because I don't believe these polls, whether they're right or left leaning.
So if you're gonna ask me, looking at the early voting, Republicans are doing god awful in this state. They're being totally demolished in terms of the early voting, and I think it's going to be a huge hill to climb for Republicans to make up that deficit. I think it's going to go for Biden come election day by like a in margin. I think this is like his home state. He spent a lot of money, a lot of time here, and he has better appeal in this state, in my opinion. Um, this time around as opposed to 2016. I think Biden will manage to pull off the state.
Yeah, he'll definitely get the state by a lean, if not likely, margin, because it is up there with the rest of the Rust Belt states. It's just not up there.
I would categorize it as lean. All right, and the last one that we have here is Maine Second District. This one's probably a little more weird. If you can show the polls, if you go up to the top, you can click on
Oh,
specifically
I
second.
can. Thank you. I forgot about that.
Shows Biden up +2. I truly don't know about this one. You don't really have many good polls. I think Trump will manage to pull it off by like a tilt margin.
I
think
agree.
he'll be able to.
Yeah, I will agree. That is a tilt margin. So just so I don't turn the whole state red. So with all the electoral votes counted, minus Georgia, because we clearly cannot give it a characterization, I guess for the point of sympathy, we're going to give it to Trump. 334 to 204. I would say this would be an election landslide. Trump could not challenge this if he wanted to, and Biden would win the election. So, with that, with Biden winning the White House, we now look at the Senate forecast, where it is only getting worse for the GOP. It was originally 50.2, then it was 50.4, 50.8, and then it hit 51, 51.4, now it's all the way up to 51.6. So now Democrats have a 75% chance of winning control of the Senate. And it was, all the way back in early October, only 64, only 60, even as low as in the high 50s. So with Biden's polls going up, so do the Senate's chances of control. Because with Harris as the tiebreaker, they only need 50, not 51.
Yeah, pretty much in my opinion, whoever wins the presidency is going to have control of the Senate, pretty much.
Yeah, I think it will be 50-50.
If Trump wins, he'll have control of the Senate. If Biden wins, he'll have control. It's pretty much how it's going to roll.
I mean, if we do look at the polls, or these aren't even polls, these are just models because it doesn't just take into account polls. Actually, this is new. So Arizona is the lost race for the GOP. It is way too far in the Democrats' column. And then we also have North Carolina, which is also up there. Like Cal Cunningham is, let's see, what was he polling at? He's 65% chance of winning. Obviously, Tom Tillis can still win, but it's going to be uphill battle for him. And what's the other state? Maine. Oops. Sarah Gideon is likely to pull off against Susan Collins because her constituents are pissed at her for the Kavanaugh vote. So I don't see Susan Collins winning this one, especially since the GOP has pulled out her funding.
Yeah, I agree on that one too. I think Suzanne Collins is gonna lose. She can still manage to pull it out by the narrowest margin, but it's not likely.
It is unfortunately not likely for her. And that would give the Democrats 50 Senate seats, which if Biden wins, that's a majority. But what's new for today is that Iowa's race has changed. Theresa Greenfield is now up 6-10 over Joni Ernst's 4-10, which is a big jump from when they used to be tied or Joni Ernst was winning. The recent polls have shown her +4 and +5, so I don't know what has changed in this state, but she is now polling in the high 40s and 50, up to 50%. So she could pull off a victory over Joni Ernst and make the Democrats guarantee themselves a majority no matter who wins the White House.
I think I can see it looks like a lot of these Democrats are running ahead of Joe Biden. Like in Arizona, they're probably running ahead.
Well, McSally is a terrible candidate.
Yeah. In certain states, some Democrats are running behind Joe Biden, like in Colorado, probably Michigan, Maine. So it's pretty mixed.
Yeah, and what's interesting is Georgia's special election is also getting close. So if Biden wins Georgia, that special election will probably go to a Democrat. Let's see if we look at it.
It's not even heard of a Democrat winning that state for a very long time, since probably like the Carter era.
Yeah, so if we can see it has narrowed up drastically, where it went from 70 and then it flipped to 50 and 51. So what change looks like is Warnock is pulling ahead of the rest of the pack, where he has +9 on everybody, and some polls are only like pinning a one Democratic candidate up against the other. So Warnock versus Collins or Warnock versus Loeffler, and it's still showing Warnock ahead by 2 or 3%. So this will definitely be a race to watch on election night, as Warnock could pull off a win.
So is this pretty much like a free-for-all thing that they have going on, or is it like, oh, they're going to vote for one candidate and then there's going to be another election sometime?
So it is a special election. So if nobody reaches 50%, the top two will advance to a runoff, and it will most likely be a Democrat and a Republican.
Yeah.
But look at these odds that they've overcome. A 1 in 5 chance. I don't know what happened. I guess there's some strong debates, or they started polling it, but now it's even, dead even. So it'll definitely be interesting to watch on election night.
All right, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. We are the Political Pundicks, DICAS. Just had to spell it all out nice and for you, so you can really take that in. Thank you for joining. Get out of here.